perennials we're standing in here has been established for around about 11 months. It was established last year in a time of drying conditions, and we had a very dry spring and a very dry summer as well, and we've also had a very late start to this season, so it's had a very hard start, but we're very pleased with the way they've established. We've used a mixture of, in this particular area, a mixture of tall wheatgrass, which forms the basis of our perennial mix, for our perennial grasses mix. We've also got some ryegrass in the mixture. We've got chicory, and we've also got lucerne, and that forms really the mainstay of our perennials. There's also a good smattering of clover through here, which was part of the original pasture. And we don't talk about perennials as a perennial pasture alone. It's actually a perennial and an annual. So you still get annual production, but you get a perennial benefit into the summer, either with a late, you get green longer into the summer, and you also get an earlier start to the autumn feed. I should also mention we do use some Rhodes grass where the soil is a little bit deeper profile in the sandier type of ground, so that's a good fit there. This particular mix is around about 40% tall wheatgrass. We've got about 10%, 15% lucerne, 10% ryegrass, and about 10% chicory. This has been grazed very heavily since the early rains we had in March, and it's only been the last 3 weeks that it's had the pressure taken off it, and it's had a very good regrowth since then. It would have been stocked at about 12 to 13 DSEs in very trying conditions. One of the great things about having a perennial pasture at this time in this environment is that it is not subject to false breaks. If we get an early rain, it doesn't die off, and that's a great plus that's not quite often recognised. And it's grazed like a normal annual pasture throughout the winter and spring, and is shut up just before senescence and allowed to get away. The problem with allowing perennials if you just rotationally graze them and don't put the pressure on them in the spring, is that you get a lot of coarse material which the sheep won't eat once it dies off. So it's best to keep that eaten right down until as I say, senescence, and then which lets the perennials get away. This crop is actually sown with an ordinary cropping fertiliser, nothing out of the box, at 70 or 80 kilos, something like MAP, DAP, Agras, that style of fertiliser, and during the fertiliser, annual fertiliser, it gets about 90 kilos of superphosphate plus potash at about 25 to 30 kilos, and that seems to be quite adequate for good production. This sort of perennial pasture has been changed from what we did earlier. Years ago we would just go mainly saltbush, and that was back in the mid 80s, but we found that just straight saltbush doesn't actually produce a lot of dry matter for the sheep, but what the saltbush does to the understory is where the real driver is, and so we leave saltbush out of our perennial mix on the better soil types and just use that saltbush in the saltier areas, where it actually improves the understory. This particular patch of ground here, it's got piezometers in it. We're going to measure the water table, and we find that by using these perennials over a large area of the landscape, it seems to be reducing the salinity problem, with bare areas getting smaller and smaller. And we believe that if we can get about 40% of our farm under perennials of one kind or another, that we'll have our salt problem under control. And as previously mentioned, it's not a salinity problem. We've actually got an excess water problem, so we use that as a resource.